I have always believed that the best investment in the future is my son, Alexey. Nothing was more important to me than to ensure him a happy childhood and a cloudless future. From the very first days of Alexey's life, I tried to surround him with care and love, striving to create the best conditions for him. The toys he had were of the highest quality and expensive, and I chose his education with care, taking into account every detail: the best schools, tutors, and teaching aides. Our family vacations were organized so that my son could see new places, experience different cultures, and gain experiences. I worked tirelessly, putting all my energy into my job to make sure he had everything he needed. I often stayed late at work, took on extra shifts and projects just to make sure Alexey had everything he wanted. Alexey grew up to be a smart and talented boy, showing an interest in many things. I watched his successes with pride and dreamed that one day my son would become a successful man who would be respected and valued in society. I saw in him my future and believed that all my efforts and sacrifices would pay off when Alexey reached great heights. Years passed and Alexey, overcoming all difficulties and studying hard, graduated from a prestigious university with honors. This moment was a proud moment not only for him, but also for me. After graduation, he married a beautiful girl, and I was happy to see him start his family and begin his independent life. In the meantime, I had retired. My income was significantly reduced, as my pension was much less than the salary I was making while working full-time. However, this did not stop me from continuing to support Alexey financially. I realized that the young family needed help, and I did everything I could to make sure that Alexey and his wife did not feel financial hardship. Despite my modest means, I continued to give part of my pension to my son. I denied myself many things, just so that Alexey could have a comfortable and peaceful life. I always believed that it was my duty as a father to support my child, and I was ready to make any sacrifices for that. It was important to me that Alexey did not feel the need and could concentrate on his career and family without worrying about material issues. I was excited to watch Alexey try to build his life and believed that my help was an integral part of his success. I was proud that despite all the difficulties, I continued to support him, hoping that he would be able to reach greater heights and live a happy life. But one day everything changed. Alexey, who seemed so successful and happy, suddenly faced a series of failures. He lost his job in the company where he had worked so hard, and, finding himself in a difficult financial situation, began to seek solace in alcohol. His life began to gradually deteriorate. His unstable condition and alcohol led to conflicts in his family. Soon his wife could not stand this way of life and decided to leave, taking the children with her. Alexey was left alone, without support, and without understanding what to do next. When he realized that he could not cope with the situation on his own, he came back to me, hoping to find refuge and help. However, instead of getting support and comfort, Alexey decided to vent all his resentment and frustration on me. A storm broke out in our home. Alexey, in a state of deep despair and anger, did not hold back his emotions and yelled at me. "You never taught me how to cope with difficulties," he shouted, barely holding back his tears. "You just gave me money and thought that was enough. But the result is that I'm good for nothing. I have no job, no family. All I've learned is how to spend money and hope that someone will solve my problems for me." Alexey blamed me for all his troubles with anger and tears in his eyes. He couldn't or wouldn't see that his own decisions and actions had caused the current problems. I sat in the chair, and every word he said was painful. My heart was breaking with pain. I didn't know how to respond to my son who, despite all my love and support, still held me responsible for his failures. Every word of accusation that came out of Alexey's mouth was like a stab in my heart. I sat in my old chair, hardly perceiving these words. Tears rolled down my cheeks involuntarily, burning my skin and leaving warm traces on my old face. I tried to collect my thoughts and find the words to express what was on my mind, but Alexey's anger and my own pain prevented clarity. "Alexey," I began, trying to speak as calmly as I could despite the tremor in my voice. "I always tried to give you the best I had. I wanted you to have a good life, to never know want or hardship. I worked my hardest, and I may not have always been the perfect father, but every decision I made was to make your life better. I invested everything I could in you, and always acted out of love for you." I took a deep breath, my voice shaking with excitement, but I continued, trying to find comfort and understanding in my words. Maybe I had made mistakes. Maybe I was too focused on the material things, forgetting the importance of teaching you how to cope. But, Alexey, everything I've done for you. I always thought that if I gave you everything I didn't have myself, you could build your life and be happy. I hoped that my diligence and sacrifices would help you avoid the problems I had to go through. I looked at my son with a deep sadness in my eyes, as if trying to convey all my love and regret through my words. I realize I may have missed something. I continued quietly, but believe me, I never wanted you to suffer. I just wanted you to have the life you dreamed of. Alexey wasn't listening. His anger and frustration were so strong that they clouded his judgment and prevented him from hearing what I was saying. He didn't want to hear the explanation, didn't want to see the pain that was reflected in my eyes. His decision was made, and without holding back his emotions, he turned and left, slamming the door with such force that it felt as if all the furniture in the room shook. The casually closed door left me in a silence that was almost palpable. I was left alone, and the silence around me was almost impenetrable. I sat in my old armchair, as if drained of my strength, and stared at the empty room, lit only by the dim light. Images from the past flashed through my mind. Every moment I tried to provide for my son, every effort, every sacrifice. I remembered how I had worked late into the night, how I had given up my own wants and needs to make Alexey's life comfortable. All of this turned to gloom as I realized that perhaps something had been missed. I realized that perhaps I had focused too much on the material side of life and too little on teaching my son how to cope. Perhaps I was wrong to think that money and stuff could replace life lessons and experiences. But it was impossible to change the past. Mistakes had been made, and their consequences were part of my life. I continued to sit in my empty room, my heart heavy with worry and frustration. Each breath was difficult to take, as if I was breathing through a veil of fear and guilt. Time passed slowly, and each minute brought more and more feelings of loneliness. I couldn't shake off the guilt that, like chains, bound my soul. I knew I had done everything I could to make my son's life better, but my efforts didn't seem to be enough. Each day I became more and more immersed in thinking about what I could have done differently, what I could have changed to prevent this breakup with my son. Remembering the warm moments when Alexey was still a child, I felt the poignancy of my regrets. I continued to live with a heavy heart and disappointing thoughts, realizing that all my efforts, sacrifices, and love could not change the reality in which I found myself. I want to apologize immediately for any errors in the text or dubbing. I am just learning, and the language of this channel is not my mother tongue. The dubbing is done with the help of artificial intelligence. Please point out errors so I can fix them and improve the quality of the content. Also, I will be glad if you share your thoughts on the topic. Your support in the comments is very motivating for me to keep looking for new, interesting stories. Thank you for your understanding and participation. Subscribe to the channel and put a bell to not miss new stories.